Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're able to view this. Welcome to the D2L Fusion Learning Community. We're glad you're participating this way and getting a chance to see our presentation. Inclusivity, Learning Design for All. I'm Zala Fashant, and my colleague Karen LaPlant is a little under the weather and a little sore throat, coughing, those kinds of things. So I'll be doing most of the presentation alone today. I'll be doing the talking part while my voice will last and everything that way. But I hope that you're learning a lot at Fusion, that you're having an opportunity to see both live sessions and these recorded sessions as well, and getting a chance to be able to use this information as you go back and you're using D2L Brightspace as your LMS. So at any rate, we're going to get jumping right into it here. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that that we've really been focusing on a lot with faculty as we work with them in the Course Design Institute, which is our opportunity to really work with faculty on campuses, to be able to do workshops. We do it online for the most part, and we're able to, in 9 sessions, walk faculty through about everything about designing learning. One of the topics that came up in the middle of that about a year ago was really talking about learning design and how faculty and instructional designers have to consider a lot of different factors when you're designing effective and engaging courses. However, one of them is really the student's orientation to others and the world around them, notably if they are introverted or extroverted. So many of you, of course, are familiar with the work of Carl Jung, way back in over 100 years ago. And from his work, the Briggs and Myers developed the well-known Myers-Briggs personality type. And when we take a look at extroverts, the way Jung spelled it, we know that they tend to gain energy by interacting with others. Introverts tend to gain energy by reflecting internally. So one of the things that we have to work with here is we know that there is no actual thing such as a pure introvert or pure extrovert. So think about it. You can pause the recording if you like. Do you consider yourself more of an introvert or an extrovert? And what characteristics do you possess that makes you lean toward being an introvert or an extrovert? Go ahead and pause the recording, and we'll join again as soon as you're ready. So, introverts versus extroverts. Well, characteristics, again, we know extroverts gain energy by being with others. Their thinking actually sort of feeds from the idea of others. They're looking for acceptance. They're looking for gaining some sort of consensus thinking as they go through there. Introverts, however, prefer keeping more to themselves. So being asked to contribute their ideas on the spot may actually stress them rather than energizing them. So when you begin to think about how this plays out in your courses, are you providing opportunities for both types of learners? So the challenge that we face is this: introverted faculty and designers tend to design courses with a more reflective or internalized approach. Extroverted faculty and designers will design courses that capitalize on student interaction. They don't mean to favor one or the other, but unconsciously they gravitate to that type of learning. So when you start to think about whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, are you designing your courses to favor one or the other? So again, give you a moment to think about it. What experiences have you had as an introvert or extrovert that made you feel like one is more preferred than the other? Pause the recording, think about it, and join us in a minute. So again, Deirdre Faye Jackson has pointed out that academics who demonstrate introverted characteristics are somehow less valued than their extroverted colleagues. You may say the same thing could happen with students. Do we appreciate extroverted students? Now, when we had face-to-face courses, and that was really one of the only ways that we were delivering instruction, the face-to-face courses, we wanted to see a lot of interaction. We wanted to see students talking and verbalizing, because that is evidence of their thinking. However, we just don't always get that from the introverted students. And so did you ever think that maybe introverted students were not, they weren't getting it, or that they weren't as good of a student? Our participation grades sometimes reflect that kind of a thing, where we would give and we would expect all students participate verbally by showing us somehow, not just are they engaged and are they somehow engaged in thinking in their mind, and that's how they're actually able to be participating in the class. So imagine if we had a world that's only filled with one type. Obviously, we'd miss the other. Extroverts may rush forward to complete the work by checking boxes. Introverts may examine the work in a deeper dig. So intentionally consider how to guide students to move from being extroverts to introverts and vice versa, because both modes will have benefits for them in the workplace. So you may notice that extroverts enjoy talking in front of the class, or they'll unmute themselves or chat more in Zoom sessions. They contribute more verbally in discussion posts, and they love to work a little bit more in groups. Introverts may appear to hold back. They don't share as much information verbally at first, and silently observe more in teamwork. So here's some myths about introverts. Introverts are shy. Well, some may be, but not all. Introverts are unfriendly. Some people think that introverts are unfriendly just because they don't have to tend to have large groups of friends, or they enjoy their own company. Introverts can't be leaders. Some people think an introverted personality equals leadership potential. Introverts have the skills to actually make them effective leaders, because they listen to others' ideas, they stay focused on long-term goals, they seem less threatening. So people may accept them in their roles more so than an extroverted personality. It's hard to get to know introverts. They prefer deep friendships with a handful of people. They may not warm up to everyone who wants to small talk, but real friends know them very well. The fact that introverts are in the majority among college professors is noteworthy, because introverts are a distinct minority in the general population. So disproportionately high percentage of introverts in academic endeavors make sense, given the work that we do. Think about the work, think about the research, think about the thoughtfulness, the introverted type things that you have to do in the job. One of the only extroverted kinds of things is you may certainly counsel students, you may stand up in front of a lecture, or you may be able to be more extroverted as you're walking around a lab situation, things that way, as you're interacting with students. A preference for thinking about ideas and principles, coupled, of course, with high intelligence in academic professors, is an undeniable asset in the pursuit of high quality research and teaching. So we like that, but at the same time, oftentimes, because professors stand up in front and they're talking and they're teaching in front of groups of students, we all think of them sometimes as extroverts. So why do introverts make exceptional teachers? Well, they have deep listening skills. They are reflective for individuality, because they appreciated when they were individually recognized. There's the value of deep work. They have a calm and steady influence with others. And there's also an encouragement of independent learning. Those are all things that, if you really think about it, students who are going out into the workforce, our business partners, the people who want to hire those students, are certainly looking for students with those qualities. So One of the goals in designing your courses for significant learning should consider transforming the skill sets of extroverts and introverts into ambiverts, teaching them to learn from one another and move along the spectrum as the situation changes and requires a different approach. In other words, we need to teach them how to pivot and to be able to identify the situation that they're in so they can respond best. So what are the characteristics of ambiverts? Well, they know when to push, they know when to pull back, they know when to speak up, they know when to listen, and they can adapt to what the situation requires. Learn from one another to switch strategies to complete work. Another great opportunity. Not all projects are going to be totally in the extrovert sort of manner. They're not going to be all in the introvert kind of way. There's going to be a blending of those. So ambiverts will actually learn from one another as to when to switch these strategies. They're typically more emotionally stable and resilient because they can move back and forth. They can live in both worlds. And they can think, act, and behave in a more consistent manner because they can see what's coming up, they can begin to adjust, they can pivot, and they are ready to do so. Now, again, most of us actually become ambiverts. With the more experience we get, we learn to be stronger ambiverts. You may have undergraduates when they're 18 years old that come in that are strongly one way or the other. However, throughout your curriculum, hopefully you are designing courses that will provide them with a lot of work. It'll make them uncomfortable at times, but it'll give them an opportunity to be able to do more with that. So if you want to think of a continuum, this is kind of what we have. We find out, again, as I said, students who come in tend to be either an extrovert or an introvert. However, when you design your courses the way you could design your courses, you don't want to cater to extroverts or introverts. You really want to cater so everybody feels comfortable, but at the same time, you're moving them to being ambiverts. So introverts, they're often exhausted in their workplace because many of their colleagues don't know how to harness the power of introversion. Now remember, you are actually creating future workplace employees. So creating an introvert and extrovert friendly learning environment looks like this. One, you respect boundaries. It can take up to 23 minutes for a person to regain the focus after they've been interrupted. You all know what it's like on those days when you came to work and you had several things you wanted to take care of and you got interrupted by that. It takes you a long time to get back into your groove. Brainstorming alone. Research shows that if you want to maximize creativity, let people generate ideas by themselves before sharing them in a group. Those of you who follow that think, pair, share philosophy, you're doing this. It's a great opportunity to let everybody do the thinking, everybody do the researching, everybody generate their own ideas, and then you share them. Actually, you get more ideas and you get better ideas in doing so. Shorten or target focus the meetings. Those of you who like lecture, you may have started to realize that if you do short lecture and then some sort of action component where the students apply the material and do something with it, all of them tend to stay with you a little bit more. Introverts are not fans of meetings or interactive face-to-face classes. They want to have some think time first. So if you shorten up that time where you are giving them shorter information, we talked about this a little bit with the whole flipped classroom idea, that students are actually getting an opportunity to process content by themselves first, and then you come together ready to discuss, or you discuss online in a discussion group. Don't force a certain type of communication. So if you're teaching online, encourage people how to decide how they want to communicate, like turning cameras on or off. If they want their camera on or they don't want their camera on, very little of it really matters at that point. If you're doing it for participation and attendance, again, you may want to rethink that. Provide the opportunity of privacy. Extroverts may love to see everybody all the time, but introverts sometimes need some privacy. The solution is a flexible work environment or learning environment that provides silence and a private space for introverts and lively, interactive, open space for extroverts. So some of you may actually use your LMS or your Zoom to be able to create groups. And the groups are great as long as you've given people some opportunities to think about something ahead of time and then bring it together to talk about it in a larger group. What did everybody come up with? Okay, so when we think about course design and the strategies that you're going to be able to use, online learning as well as any course delivered using the learning management tools like Brightspace in this case, you create more of a balance between extroverted and introverted oriented learning. So providing opportunities and time for those who prefer to type responses is a successful strategy for all students. And of course, using your discussion tools in Brightspace is fantastic for that. It gives you the opportunity to let everybody think. Some of you may even use the option where students need to type in their response first, and then once they've submitted it, they can see what their peers have written as well. So they're not intimidated, they're not influenced. We get them to all do their own thinking first. Excuse me. Students can also post responses using text, video. They can ask questions, they can share experiences, they can provide resources. Some of your introverted students may love to find some resources and then post them someplace in a sort of bibliography library type of situation. You can discuss additional content. All of these strategies have the opportunity to really demonstrate content, application, and integration, as well as to show that students are participating. It's not just verbal participating. So with a writing prompt posed, students are given thinking time to communicate a thoughtful, supported response. Why discussions work to create ambiverts? Well, there's an expectation that everyone will have the opportunity to share their ideas and that each response will be valued. The table on the next slide exemplifies how intentionally designed learning activities can benefit both introverted and extroverted students. So when we look at this table, and again, I'm going to kind of fly through this. You can go ahead and pause it and reflect on it deeper by pausing the recording. But let me say first this. You can use the learning activities. It shows you why they're good for introverts, why they're good for extroverts. I'll pause now, give you an opportunity to read more about this. Let's take a look at considering the LMS tools that you have. What are the tools in Brightspace that we have here? And you can see most of these should look familiar. If you're not using all of them or using a great majority of them, you may be not creating ambiverts. You may not be creating the opportunity for students to be able to have several ways to communicate, whether it's insightful, in-depth thinking first, or if it's spontaneous thinking first, but yet at the same time, by using all of them, you're giving students a chance to move toward that ambivert stage. The secret is silence. Again, the cost of distraction. We tend to be interrupted every 3 minutes, and it takes a long time to get back to it. The power of reflection. I have always said that reflection is an essential process to retaining information in our brain. You need the reflection piece. You need the opportunity to connect that information with what you already know. It will help you avoid making previous mistakes, and it makes learning that lasts. So design practices in your courses, block out some interruption-free times. Even if you're doing a Zoom session, give students 5 minutes to work on something and then bring it back together. You can batch the interaction times. Use your time in Zoom or in classroom meetings to be able to use the interaction piece where they have already done some of that work prior to coming to class, and then having daily check-ins. How's it going? How are you doing? What are you understanding? What don't you understand? Little surveys, little ideas like that that you can do. Some of you may recognize that last one because maybe part of the 1-minute papers, those ideas where you're checking in with students. How's it going? Give them an opportunity to share what they learned best. Reflection exercises will tell you that as well. What did you learn from our talk today in class, in the course? When we were in the Zoom session, what were your takeaways? And have everybody participate and give them some points for doing that. So when you're designing for these groups of people, here's an exercise that we do when we do an in-person workshop. We really take a look at extroverts, ambiverts, introverts, and we look at the activities, the assignments, and the assessments that we have, which lean towards being extroverted, that lean toward being introverted, or that are right in the middle, and they are ambiverted. You really want to strike a balance. So when your students, especially by the time you're doing courses that are in the 200, 300 level, you may want to be able to make sure that you for sure are striking a balance for students. But you have to give a flavor of everything for everyone so they best succeed. I wouldn't do all extroverted classes when there are concepts and activities when they first come in their very first intro 100 level course. You're going to lose some of them by that time, or they'll say, this isn't for me. I don't have what it takes for this. So make sure that you strike a balance in all of your courses so that students have the opportunity to really learn and grow, and you'll teach them how to be that ambivert. So again, think about it. How have you used a variety of activities and assessments, or maybe you haven't, to ensure that introverts and extroverts' needs are being met as you move them to becoming ambiverts? Pause the recording and think for a moment. Well, for some of you, you may want to dive a little deeper, that is, or think a little deeper about this concept and getting some more information. If you go to is-courses.com, here's an opportunity for you to take a great course that we've designed. Again, it's designing courses for introverts and extroverts. It's really inclusivity in action. You can subscribe to the course. You also receive a certificate of completion. Go ahead, take a photo of this page so you have it for later. Get your phone out, open your camera, take a picture. It's great. Or you can pause it for a second if you're digging for your phone. We really appreciate you joining us today, and you can talk to both Karen and myself, and you can email us at those types of things. You can get the opportunity if you want to learn more about the course. If you've got your camera handy, the QR code will take you there. You can also access our book on designing effective teaching and significant learning. There's a book code there, SS203, that will let you save 20% on the cost of the book, and gives you an opportunity to go ahead and see that. And finally, if you'd like your own badge for attending the session, you can get your badge. Go ahead, take a photo of this again. Same email address. Email me at zala.fashant@insynergy.com. In the subject matter, you can put engage in there, and that way I'll know you watched the presentation and that you'd like to get the badge from there. And I'll even send you a bonus link about how AI, it will shake up higher ed, or the college is ready. Kind of something that we got there. This badge thing, by the way, for those of you who enjoy badges, we have those 14 courses that we have so far, 6 more on the way. One of the things that you've got here is you can create badges like this that look nice, and will give you the opportunity to be able to share motivational strategies with your students to get them going. So anyway, thank you very much. We appreciate the time and the effort that you did for coming to our presentation. And we hope you learned a lot of Fusion and get the opportunity to keep enjoying D2L Brightspace. Take care.